Alright guys, I've got a cool video for you today. We're going to be reviewing the God mod. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about this modification that people have been putting in their electric unicycles. There's a lot of discussion one way and the other about these capacitor modifications. So today we're going to check it out and see what happens.
Alright guys, quick note before we start today's video. You'll probably hear me call the God mod I'm testing in this video the medium God mod. Well, it turns out that the sizes of the God mods have actually changed since my buddies ordered these. So the God mod that I'm testing today is now considered the small God mod. So you might hear me say medium. This is the small God mod that I'm testing today.
So this video is going to be the performance review of the God mod, where I actually plug it into my EX20S, which is a notoriously not torquey wheel. This is the high-speed version. And one of the main claims of the God mod is that it improves torque on your electric unicycle. So we're going to probably get a pretty definitive result here, at least with the EX20S, to see if that is the case. This video is the performance review of the God mod. I'm also releasing a secondary review, which is the actual components review of the God mod, kind of talking about these capacitor mods in general and the specifics of the God mod capacitor modification. I highly suggest anybody thinking about buying a God mod go check out that other video to actually see what you're getting. Alright, for today's video we're going to be trying out a couple different tests here with the different modifications. I have the God mod, and I also made my own mod, the George mod. The George mod is about 50% stronger than the medium God mod, so we're going to be testing the wheel without any modification, with the medium God mod, and with the George mod, so we can see, is there a difference between no capacitor and capacitor, and is there a difference between a smaller capacitor and a bigger capacitor. As far as the tests are concerned, I have a couple that we want to try. I'm going to try to do it as scientifically as possible. It's going to be really difficult to get exact empirical data on the differences between the mods or no mods or whatever, but I'm going to do the best I can to try to quantify it via a couple different tests. We're going to do the ride mode test. I've heard that the capacitor modifications highly alter the different ride modes of the electric unicycle. So what I'm going to do first is ride the unicycle in all three modes, hard, medium, and soft. Then I'm going to plug in the God mod, ride it in hard mode, medium, and soft, and just see if I can feel a difference in the ride modes. You know, hard mode has really stiff pedals, medium, they dip a little, soft, they really dip. So we'll plug in the capacitors and see exactly what happens there. And then I'm also going to do a acceleration voltage sag type test where I take off the line. Not too crazy, but I just want to see kind of when you're launching, does the capacitor have a empirical effect? Like, is there less voltage sag when I go to take off in the same conditions in the same spot? You know what I mean? Then we're going to be doing an incline test. So theoretically, these, or at least advertising wise, these capacitor mods are supposed to increase your torque. So we're going to go find a hill that the EX20S high speed has trouble climbing or can't climb, and then we're going to try climbing it with the capacitor modifications plugged in, see if we get higher up, see if it fails at the same point, see what happens. Hopefully after performing a couple of these tests we'll have some good data to go back and look at and see if there is any difference between mod, no mod, big mod, and we'll see what happens. The first test we're going to do is a spin test. I don't think the capacitors are going to have any difference on the top speed. I don't think they've been advertised to do so, but we got to check it out anyway, right? Just see what happens. Alright, as far as installing a God mod, it's pretty simple. Essentially what you're doing is wiring the capacitor in parallel with your batteries. It's essentially like adding another battery. Capacitors act very similar to batteries, they just store less energy. For most people, that means you're going to need some kind of a Y splitter, basically, to plug into your wheel to have a spot where the batteries plug in and a spot where the capacitor plugs in. I already have a Y splitter in my wheel from my 12-volt modification, so for today, I'm just going to be unplugging my 12-volt mod and just plugging in the capacitors right there. And of course, like the civilized human I am, I'm going to be duct taping the mods to the seat today. And like I said, when we plug it in, I do expect a bit of a snap. Although I do have anti-spark connector, but still. Yeah, there's a small snap there. But the anti-spark connector is definitely clutch in stopping that from being too crazy. So, and that's all it takes. Wiring right into parallel, bang. This is now charged. This is now a live capacitor. So anytime you're handling this, be careful. It's essentially a little taser, right? It's going to release energy super fast. So from now on, this will basically always have a charge to it when I take it in and out.
My microphone must have come unplugged here because I lost the audio here during our spin test, but like we already hypothesized, there was no difference whatsoever. With and without the modification, the spin test came out exactly the same. So let's just get right into the ride mode test.
Alright, so I normally ride in medium mode on the EX20 here. I am currently riding in medium mode with the God mod installed, and I can definitely tell you it feels a little different. It feels like hard mode. There's no give to the pedals. Like usually it kind of gives you just a little lean forward to cruise you into it, but right now, yeah, it feels the same as hard mode would. Like it's gotten rid of that give. Let's switch it to soft mode and see if it's the same deal. All right, here we go. I switched it to soft mode, which is usually a little too soft for my liking here on the EX20S. Okay, that's interesting. It feels like medium mode now. Feels like we just stepped up the ride modes. Because it's not that soft, but it's definitely softer than it was when it was in medium. Oh, that's interesting. I was kind of expecting this to also be rock hard stiff. I'm surprised that it's still not super rock hard pedal. It actually feels good like this. I like this soft mode with the God mod installed. It's interesting. Yeah, soft mode with the God mod, definitely not as soft as it used to be. And it feels pretty good, honestly. I kind of like it. Jumping off a curb feels good. Cool. All right, I'm gonna try real hard mode now, see if it gets super hard. Yeah, it doesn't feel that much different, honestly. It feels pretty much the same. It's just got like a slight, very slight forward dip to it. Nothing crazy. So I was kind of expecting the pedals to be a lot more rock solid on hard mode, so it kind of threw me off. All right, obviously this test is extremely subjective. Everyone's gonna have their own feelings of things. Let's go over a bump here. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, no, nothing crazy. Just feels kind of like hard mode without the God mod in it. To make a note, without the God mod, the hard mode has always been just a tick soft. It always does have like a little pedal lean on this. Little pedal, which again, personally, I don't mind the pedal dipping. I like it. It helps you get into the accelerations, helps you get into braking better. But if you're looking for hyper hard pedals, the EX20S definitely isn't the wheel for you. And I don't know that the God mod makes that big of a difference. I was kind of expecting a lot more dramatic of a feeling there. It's definitely stronger than without the God mode, but on the EX20S it doesn't make that much of a difference. I definitely like soft mode the best with the God mod installed, and I don't really like soft mode without the God mod installed. So it does do something there, and I had heard it was going to play games with the firmware a little bit and make the pedal modes a little bit different. So that's why we did this test, right? Again, very subjective, but it definitely does have an effect on your pedal settings. So when you install your God mod, if you get one, or a capacitor mod, whatever you decide to do, definitely try the different ride modes, see how they feel to you. All right, now let's try the same test here, the subjective pedal feel test with the George mod installed. Just a tip closer here. All right, so I'm gonna do it in the same order here, starting off in medium mode now with the George capacitor mod installed. Feels the same, really. It's a little bit harder than my normal medium mode would be, I think. Again, these tests, very subjective, obviously easy to succumb to a placebo type effect, but it definitely feels a little bit stiffer than my medium mode. I do like it when the pedals have a little more give to them. This definitely feels more like it's in hard mode. We'll take it off a curb, see if that makes any difference. No, definitely feels stiffer than normal, but all right, let's try soft mode next. All right, here we go, soft mode now. Again, I like how this feels. It has that same kind of medium mode feeling. Yeah, going over a few bumps there. Oh yeah, into the turner. It's got a nice little pedal dip. Yeah, this feels just like when I ride medium mode on my normal, without the God mod being installed. So that's very interesting. Let's just try hard mode just to be sure that there's not really much of a difference here between the two mods. Okay, again with the microphone issues, of course, right when I got to the most interesting part of this test. Basically what I'm saying here is that the pedals actually felt fairly significantly stiffer, like a lot stiffer than when I had the God mod installed. Now, the George mod is about 50% more powerful than this small God mod that I'm testing in this video, and I do believe that there was a very noticeable difference between the small God mod and my George mod in hard mode. I don't think it's a placebo effect on that. This is definitely a different feeling. Very interesting. I was expecting to get the same feeling between the two capacitance mods, honestly. I figured it would affect the ride modes differently, but I didn't think there would be a difference between the larger capacitance. I thought just adding the, so the God mod is 4,400 millifarad. The George mod is 6,600 millifarad, so it's about 50% stronger. And yeah, going back again, I do think that there is actually a significant difference between them, which I'm very surprised. I really thought it would be all the same once I plug these things in. So it definitely feels a lot softer compared to like the hard mode. It's very aggressive, very tough. I do think that there's a quantitative difference there. You know, I can't really give you any empirical difference data to back that up, other than, again, this subjective test that I'm currently doing. But subjectively, the bigger capacitance of the George mod actually makes a pretty significant difference in ride feel and the actual pedal stiffness. So whenever you get one of these capacitance mods, whether you make it yourself or you buy it from God Mod or somebody else or whatever, definitely try the different ride modes, because it will affect how the wheel rides. Very interesting. All right, now we're going to do a little acceleration test. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see UC World on the camera here, but I'll do my best to get a decent shot of it. We're not going to do any crazy accelerations. We're just going to see what it takes to get up to 30 miles an hour. I'm more interested in how the voltage sag is going to react, honestly, than the actual performance, if it's going to accelerate faster. That's so subjective. But I can quantify if the voltage sag is affected. So that's what we're going to do. Here we go. This is the acceleration up to 30 with no God mod, no mod at all. All right, here we go. Test 1 with the God mod installed. Here we go, same test. Now, George mod installed, 50% bigger capacitor. All right, so 30 mile an hour acceleration test there. I'm gonna have to look at the footage to actually see what happened. So let me go take a look and see if there's any noticeable difference in the numbers between the three different types. I can say once again, from a feel perspective, it felt like the bigger capacitor had a difference. I didn't notice much of a difference between no capacitor and God mod, just feel wise. But the bigger George mod did actually feel a little bit stronger on the acceleration. I don't know if that's just from the stiffer pedals or not, but Subjectively, slight difference. All right, so I just sat down and watched the footage from the acceleration tests, and honestly, there doesn't really seem to be much of a difference at all in the voltage sag that we were experiencing. But as we continued with the test, it just kept dropping, maybe 0.1, 0.2 lower and lower, obviously as we're using more battery. The accelerations obviously consume battery a lot, so not really any kind of difference between the three tests. I felt it's basically a rounding error on each one. As we lose a little bit of power, we lost just a little bit lower on the voltage on each 30-mile-an-hour test. So all in all, I would say God mod didn't really have much of an effect empirically on at least voltage sag. It seemed to be pretty straightforward right across the board, the same for all three, without, with, and with the bigger. Subjectively, I thought maybe with the George mod it felt a little bit quicker. I can't quantify that, you know what I mean? I don't know how much of that's just a placebo effect, but you know, if I had to say, I would say with the God mod, maybe it was a little different, probably just due to the pedal stiffness, and the same thing with the George mod. Like, it definitely did feel a little different to me. I don't know how much of that is just because it was the 10th acceleration test, so I was just really getting used to that feeling, or maybe it's because the pedals were a little bit stiffer, but quantifiably I can't say that it made the acceleration a little bit faster. Subjectively, the big mod maybe had some effect. All right, up next, we're gonna do an incline test. So based on my experience with this EX20 high speed, not gonna like this climb too much. This is probably a 30 to 35 degree incline with bumps and rocks. So it's probably not gonna like it very much. I think this is gonna be one of our best ways of figuring out if the torque is actually gonna be increased on the EX20. We'll go up it with no cap God mod and then George mod and see what happens. Hopefully I don't break the wheel here. Alright, so right there at the tree, the EX20S does not have the torque to get up the sharpest incline there. That's close to 45 degrees. So let's plug in the God mod, see what happens. Alright, here we go. Take two now with God mod. Same result. All right, one more time with the God mod. All right, one more try for the God mod. All right, essentially the same result with and without God mod. I can't say it felt any torque here. Pretty much the exact same spot it failed. Well, we'll give it one more try with the George mod. See what happens. All right, here we go with the George mod now. Nope. Okay, well, honestly, I think I'm done abusing the EX20 with that test anyways. No effect on the torque going. The incline didn't change. We got to the same spot every time I overpowered it. It was right at the spot where it gets to be about 45 degrees or so. Even though it's only a short little bit of 45 degrees, it couldn't even go 2 feet up it, not even a foot and a half, whatever. Whereas a wheel like my T4, I've climbed that hill with my T4 before. with my V11, I used to go up that hill. The EXN high speed had trouble with that little hill, but yeah. So it's not an impossible climb, but it definitely wasn't happening, even though I put a 6600 millifarad capacitor on the EX20. Oh, all right, so let's sit down and talk about my findings today with these capacitor modifications. I think I've come to the conclusion that they do something. They're not total snake oil. They don't do nothing. However, I do think that some of the claims being made by people selling them might be a little exaggerated. I will say that definitely have an effect on how the pedals feel when you're riding. I mean, it does something to the ride modes. It makes some kind of an adjustment, whether it's just tricking the firmware into having different response times. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on there, but there is definitely a difference in the ride feel when you plug in one of these capacitor mods. However, as we saw from the 30-mile-an-hour acceleration tests, there really wasn't any difference in the voltage sag. As we kept doing the tests, the voltage just kept sagging lower and lower. So there really wasn't any gains from it plugging these bad boys in. And then at the end here on that incline test, I mean, there was no difference at all. With the medium and with George's larger mod, all three failed at the same spot every time. It just kept getting over torqued. You know, I really can't provide any empirical data that says that this mod is a must-have or it's really going to make that much of a difference. Now, subjectively, whether it's placebo effect or not, I do think that there is a slight difference when accelerating. Even when torquing up the hill on that incline test, subjectively, yeah, I think I'll keep the George mod installed. I don't see any negatives to it from my testing today, and I do think that there was, again, whether it's placebo or not, subjectively, a very slight difference. However, when we're talking about the medium-sized God mod, I thought the difference was less profound, so I would definitely go with the biggest capacitor mod that you could if you're looking for those performance differences. I do think that you're going to want to go big or go home. Which kind of leads me to my bigger problems with the God mod. Set the performance aside entirely, right? We have a serious price issue going on with this capacitor mod, and I'm going to highlight that a lot more in another video here, part 2 of this review. And in part 2 of this review, I'm going to go over the components used in the God mod, as well as putting together the George mod. I'm going to give you a little walkthrough on how I made this one. So be sure, if you are considering purchasing one of these God mods, absolutely check out that video. It's going to be vital for you to make your purchasing decision. And like I said, I'm going to be keeping the George mod installed on my unicycle. The George mod, once again, is a 6600 millifarad capacitor, while the God mod is a 4400 millifarad capacitor. So the George mod is about 50% more power. Unfortunately, the large God mod is $600 right now. So hopefully by the time this video is done being shown to people and the word starts to spread, especially when you see the second video, hopefully those prices come down, because I do think they're a little bit unreasonable. Alright, well, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I really appreciate you checking it out. Be sure, again, to check out the other video I just released on the God mod. I think I'm going to be releasing them pretty much at the same time. So go check that one out if you have any interest in seeing how these capacitor mods are made, or if you want to just see the secret sauce behind these capacitor mods. Just to give you a quick teaser on that other video, like I said, the medium God mod is currently being sold for $300 on their website. The George mod cost me $26 to make. So go ahead, check out that video. Thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. As always, guys, ride safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.